trouble with love.
Welcome back to my channel. Sorry for the lighting. I know it doesn't look the greatest, and don't mind the reflection. I don't have new contacts, so I can't put them in yet. I have to get that figured out. I do have my TV on in the background, so if you see that, that's what that is. Anyway, so I was gonna film a couple of videos today, and I think I have a list of different video ideas that I wanted to do, and there were a couple on here. And one of the ones that I wanted to do was I guess like a list of my favorite authors of all time, which I don't think this is a tag. This is just like my favorite type of genre that I love reading. So my favorite author of all time is also, hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Savannah, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe if you like book video content. I do occasionally post art stuff, but right now where I'm currently living at, it's kind of hard to film art videos, so I do post more so shorts here on YouTube of my art stuff. I do that on TikTok and Instagram as well, so if you want to go follow those for more art related content. Some of it is book related, not all of it, but yeah. I'm trying to get into doing more book related stuff onto this channel, but I kind of feel like I might do life stuff. I'm not sure yet because things have been pretty hectic, and I think I'm gonna also post a life update. I'm not sure if I've talked about that yet because I had to delete some videos, but life update, I haven't been feeling very good. It's not COVID anymore. You guys are probably going to be seeing this video in January, and I'm filming this in December, so I haven't been feeling the greatest. I have some really bad abdominal pain in my side, on my left side, and it woke me up at like 4 a.m. in the morning and it scared the crap out of me because I have had this experience before and I lost an organ because of that. If you guys want to know about that story, maybe I'll like make a video about that. But anyway, I haven't been feeling really good. It reminded me of that. I got really freaked out. I went to a walk-in clinic. I probably should have went into an urgent care because they probably would have figured out what the heck is wrong with me. Because I don't know what's wrong with me. I have a CAT scan that I'm gonna go do in a couple of weeks. So hopefully nothing's wrong, but I still feel pain. And it's not the right kind of pain, okay? It's not like woman menstrual pain, okay? It's not that. I can tell the difference. And yeah, I'm on medication and I'm on an antibiotic. So hopefully I get this figured out because I have missed work because of it and I'm just not feeling great because of it. It hurts to bend down. And it hurts to like move around every once in a while. And even if I'm like breathing in heavily or laughing too hard, like it hurts. So bear with me. I'm trying to get through this day. And if you see a lot of videos where I'm wearing this shirt, it's because I'm filming a bunch of videos today. Anyway, so I wanted to make a video about my favorite authors of all time because I'm gonna gush about these forever for the rest of my life. But I have a list of favorite authors off the top of my head, and I'm gonna mention my most favorite author of all time has to be Cassandra Clare, just because her books were the reason why I got into reading, and to this day I love everything she's ever written, even though I haven't read the newer stuff recently, and I need to get back into reading those books because they were so freaking good. And I know her literature and her style isn't for everybody, and trust me, I've read super like profound literature. I've read literature that isn't even modern day English. I've read old English. I've read a lot of stuff because I was an English major in college, and that stuff is great and it's fine and you can be a connoisseur, but you know what, sometimes we all have like our guilty pleasure, and hers is my guilty pleasure where I will love her till the day I die. I don't care how many books she's written that are continuously the same series. I am fine with that. I will read every single one of her books, damn it. Just because she's my favorite author, and she was the one that made me, her books, the Infernal Devices series was the reason why I fell in love with literature. I don't know if I talked about this in my writing journey. Maybe I'll do a video about my reading journey because it's a funny little story about it. I mean, not super, super funny, but I guess I could give you like the short snippet of it. Was that the Infernal Devices, when I was a kid, I hated reading. I hated it, and to this day, because of that, I kind of suffer from my writing because I'm not the greatest at writing, even though I'm an English major and I managed to get that degree. I'm really good at story development. I just suck at everything else. Like, I'm good at characters. I'm good at like writing long papers. Like, I can, not bullshit, but I can like write like a 10-page paper off of like the reason why vampires, and this is an example, why vampires and werewolves and zombies are like a metaphor for segregation in our society. Like, literally, I can take the most randomest topics or the most blandest topics and make it into like a 15-page paper. Okay, I'm really good at like story development. Anyway, so when I was younger, I hated reading so much, and then I don't know if they still do this in schools, where they give you like a reading list and you have to read these books and do a summer report on them. Otherwise, I think they used to mandate it to us when we were kids. Otherwise, we would get docked a lot of points, or you would have to make it up somehow. I can't remember. But because I moved around when I was in high school, this was like right when I was gonna be a freshman in high school. Right before I was gonna go to this high school, I got switched to a different high school because of a life traumatic event, and I had to get switched to a different school. So the list of books was different. So originally I was gonna read 13 Reasons Why when that book came out, and I did end up reading that book later on, and I have a video somewhere called Books I Hate. That is one of the books that I really don't like. I really, really dislike it. That's a very unpopular opinion. I'm not a huge fan of that author. But one of the books that was on the list was either two different choices. I was either going to read Divergent by Veronica Roth or The Infernal Devices Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. And guess what was my dictating factor? Because I hated reading as a child because I sucked at it. I was really bad at it. My mom mostly spoke, my mom knew more Spanish. So I grew up in a single household with my mom. She knew more Spanish than she knew English. So she wasn't that great at like teaching me how to read. And she was really impatient about that with me. So I sucked at reading. So in my head, I was like, and I was really pissed off because I had to read 13 Reasons Why, and I read that whole entire book while I was depressed and sad, and I just went through this traumatic moment in my life, and I'm reading it, and then I got even more pissed that I read that book for no fucking reason. And so I was like, you know what, I only had like a week. I had like 2 weeks to read this new book and do this report, okay? And this was really stressful at the time, even though nowadays I'm like, that's the least of your worries. But in my head, I was like, how do I cheat the system? And I'm like, and I went to Barnes & Noble, and my relative who was with me at the time, she's like, you have to decide, like, we don't have all day. And so in my head, I was like, which one of these has less pages so I don't have to read as much? So I looked, and it just so happened that the Clockwork Angel was shorter than Divergent. But that is how I got into reading. I read that book in like 3 days, and I was super excited about it. But like in the beginning when I was reading the book, I wasn't really paying attention because I was like, I really don't give a shit. I don't like reading. I was told in my life that you suck at reading, you're never gonna get good at it, you're never gonna amount to anything in life, you're not gonna be able to live in the world if you don't know how to read, and all this other crap. And I vowed that I wouldn't really learn how to read as a kid. But then when I read that book, I was like, I might be a little bit interested in reading, but like I wasn't like paying attention to the beginning of it. And I kid you not, I thought that the book was about like detectives, and like I thought it was a non-fiction kind of like based in reality true crime fiction. But then when I started paying attention to it, because there was a moment where it was like, it was almost like that scene of Avengers, like when they all like are banded together. That was like how that moment in that book was when it caught my interest, and I was like, what the fuck am I reading? I'm like, demons, what is happening? I thought this was based in reality. And then so I started paying attention, and I read more of it. I finished that book in like 3 days. I never was able to do that ever in my whole entire life. And then afterwards I was like, huh, well, that was fun. And then I found out that there was another book, because in the back of the books you can see that there's another one if it's in a series. And so I was like, maybe I'll just buy it and see if I like it. Maybe. And in my head I was like, I'm not in love with these books. I'm not in love with reading. I'm just gonna give it a shot. And I was like really trying to convince myself that I was not gonna like fall in love with these books, and then I ended up falling in love with them. So thank you, Cassandra, so much, because I was at that time in my life I was in a really dark place in my life, and being able to like read about fiction, fantasy, angels, demons, werewolves, vampires, and like automatons in the 18 and 1900s in Victorian London inspired me so much as a kid. And then I'm gonna also insert clips because of her books and because of that book series in particular. It inspired me to really want to go to London when I got older, and I actually got to go. I got to go to London. I got to go to the Thames River. I got to go to the London Eye. I was so happy. The only thing I didn't get to go see was the Round Theater, and I would love to go again and be able to go and watch a Shakespearean play. I also got to go to Paris and Barcelona, and I was super happy about going to Paris because I got to go to the Shakespeare Theatre and Company bookstore, and I actually, ironically, I bought not the Mortal Instruments. I bought yes, I did. I bought the Mortal Instruments European cover copy in France, and I got the book stamped, and that was like the huge thing as to why like I wanted to go there. So thank you, Cassandra, because like that, reading those book series like inspired me to go to those places and be able to like live out my like Victorian fantasy dream. I swear, when I get older, when I'm like, before I turn 50, I'm gonna go to London and I'm gonna dress up in Victorian garb, and I'm just gonna take a bunch of photos, okay, with my favorite book, because her writing really has inspired me. I know it's not like the most profound, prolific writing in the whole entire world, but I really appreciate it. And yes, there are a lot of books in the series, and yes, the Mortal Instruments is a little bit interesting with some of the topics about incest, and I know a lot of people poke fun at it, and I'm not saying that's my favorite book series. The Infernal Device isn't my favorite book series, and you know what, I am okay with like, I will say, out of all the books I've ever read, that book series is the only one where I am okay with the love triangle. I am fine with it. Like this, it's okay. Like, you know what, let them all be married to each other. I'm fine with that. Like, I'm okay with that. Whereas with every other book series I've ever read, or they've tried to implement that, I'm kind of just like, why is this a thing? Like, why? But that's the only book series that I've ever really enjoyed. So that's my little spiel. She's my favorite author of all time, and I just hope she keeps coming out with more and more books, and I can just continue reading the Shadowhunter series. And I'm really looking forward. I really have to read what is it called? The Dark Artifices, I think that's what it's called. Sorry for my mispronunciation. And Chain of Gold, especially because that series, The Last Hour, is my Victorian fantasy, and I need to read it. But I'm looking forward to The Wicked Powers. I have been looking forward to that since like 2010. Okay, when I found out that she was going to continue on the series, and I heard about The Wicked Powers and like what it could potentially be about, I have some theories, and I really hope that I am correct about that, because I've been correct about other things when she came out with other books. So it's been really exciting to be able to like read along, and I have to catch up. But anyway, so my other favorite authors, who would be next? I originally would have said like Susan Collins or Veronica Roth, but I really haven't read that much of their books to begin with. Like, I've only read their main popular series, and I've reread The Hunger Games, and I did book reviews on them, and I still think her writing is still really good, even though I don't like the main character. I don't like the main character in both of those series, but I would say I like Susan Collins a little bit more than Veronica Roth, because I reread Divergent, and like the more I read it, the more I'm kind of just like, why was this popular? I'm kind of just like, why did this become a thing? I know she's written more books, but like none of her stuff has really interested me since. And going back and rereading it with like an English major's eyes, and I did a review on the first book, and I want to reread the other two. I don't think I'm ever gonna reread 4 though, because it wasn't that good. Like 4 was really but I don't think they would be my other favorites. Like those wouldn't really be my favorite authors. I think my second favorite author would probably, I feel like it would be a tie. It would be a tie between Lauren Oliver and Marissa Meyer. It's just a tie between those two, just because I haven't read much more from Lauren Oliver, but I do want to read. I'm thinking about reading Before I Fall. That one looks really interesting because I'm kind of like in this mood to like read books that are kind of similar to that genre of like time and limbo and like that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking about writing a book kind of similar to that. Anyway, so but Lauren Oliver, because I read the Delirium series, and that series is really freaking good, just because I think it's Alex, one of the characters. He is like one of my favorite female leads ever. Him and Will from the Infernal Devices, those two, they're my babies, they're my baby boys, and I like, they can do no wrong, they can do no harm, and I want to protect them from this world. Okay, they are precious, and to know that they have like suffered so much, even though they're book characters, I don't care. Okay, I want to protect them. Okay. And like, if you don't know what the Delirium series is about, it's pretty much just about like a dystopian kind of world where love, like the feeling of love, is a bad thing, so they kind of like take away their emotions, and it's kind of like Giver vibes, but like more for the modern era. And like, I know some people are like, oh, this is such a silly concept, and like, granted, it's a little bit slow in the beginning, but it picks up and it's a lot more interesting as it goes. And like, the character relationships are a little bit weird, but they're really good. And also the main character, one of the main guy characters, he's just worth it. He's like the best part of the book. Okay, I just really enjoy him the most. And then the reason why Marissa Meyer, I love fantasy retellings of fairy tale characters, and her characters for the Lunar Chronicles have to be one of the best I've read thus far, especially because she made me fall in love with the Cinderella story, with the story of Cinderella, when the story of Cinderella has been re-adapted so many fucking times, and every single time I watch it, I'm kind of like, every single time I watch a new interpretation of it, I'm like, this is kind of boring, and there's nothing here. Like, there's just nothing here. But when I read Cinder, I was like, this is kind of interesting. And then it's kind of funny because when I read her books when they came out at the time, I noticed other like movie adaptations of the Cinderella story and stuff like that. They were kind of like taking hints from her book, which was kind of interesting. I'm just saying. Anyway, so I really like her books, and I think I read Renegades. That one, I read part of it, and that one wasn't that bad. I would like to finish it, and I also want to read her Wonderland series, because I feel like that would be really, really good. And I've never read anything that's like Wonderland type inspired. And she wrote like a few other books that I really want to read too. But her stuff is so interesting. Plus the main villain, I forget what her name is, Ravinia, I think that's her name, right? Future me, if I edit this video, or if somebody wants to leave it down in the comments, that character, she has to be one of my favorites. She reminds me a lot of Regina from Once Upon a Time. As you can tell, I'm a huge fairy tale fan. Like, I used to binge watch that show. I don't do it that much anymore, and I think it didn't end a while ago. I really should get back on watching it. But those two characters remind me a lot of each other, and they're really good. Like, her characters are really, really well done. Plus it's also cool because also all the books are like their own, like, they're kind of like standalones, but it's cool when they all come together and they interact with each other. I just like, anyway, so then I would say one of my other favorite authors, which I haven't read that many of her books, and I'm just basing it off of one book, 1.5 books that I have not finished. I would probably say Sarah J. Maas, just because I like her as an author. Well, I like her books, if that makes sense. Like, I like it, but I hate it. Okay, so Cassandra Clare is my favorite author of all time. And I know I said that she's like my guilty pleasure. She's like my guilty pleasure of like child innocence, of like, I'm a 20-something year old who probably shouldn't be reading YA fiction anymore. She's my guilty pleasure in that sense of like, I'm an adult and I probably shouldn't be reading this book series that's meant for like 14 to like 18-year-olds, but I still read it. So that's my guilty pleasure. Now, Sarah J. Maas, her books are my guilty pleasure in the sense that I feel like I should not be reading this. Like, I feel like I need an adult present. That's how I feel about her books. And I kid you not, when I read this book series, like when I was 18 up to 20, and I still have not finished it, every time I read it, I'm like, I feel slightly uncomfortable, but interested. And it's like, I feel like I need an adult in the room and I should not be reading this on my own. Like, there's something about it that like pisses me off, but also like disturbs me in a weird way, but also like intrigues me. And I don't understand how she does that with her writing, even though I haven't read that many of her books. But yes, those would be my favorite 2 authors. And I'm not going based off of their like personal lives. I really don't know that much about their personal lives. So if these people are like controversial, I'm sorry. I just, no. Anyway, my other favorite author would have to be, I'm trying to think, there's only like, I would say James Dashner, but I feel like he got controversial. Plus, I only ever liked The Maze Runner. I tried reading his other book series and I forgot what it was, like Eye of Minds or whatever, and it seemed like a good concept in theory, but it just was not for my generation. I don't know why. Anyway, so I know who else I really love. So one of my other favorite authors is Rick Riordan. I love him so much. I love his books. I love the Percy Jackson series. I read all of the books and I was reading the second series. I didn't get to finish it though. And I also, another reason why I like his writing, because I don't really like a lot of male authors, but one of the other reasons why I liked him was when I was younger, when I was gonna try to get into reading. This was before I like found out about Cassandra's books. When I was younger, one book series that we grew up with was like 13 Clues or something like that. I think it was 13 Clues. And the first book, he actually, so each book a new author writes it. So he actually wrote the first book. And when I went back and I'm trying to actually reread the whole entire series, that and like Lemony Snicket, the Misunfortunate Events, but I haven't gotten to that. But when I went to reread or re-audio listen to the first book in the 39 Clues or whatever, and I forgot that he wrote that book. And when I look back and I read it or re-listened to it, I was like, this sounds like Rick Riordan. In my head I was like, this sounds like his humor, the way he writes, and I'm like, I really appreciate this. And it just like made me realize that I'm like, I've always been a fan of him even when I was a kid. So like even when I wasn't into reading. So I'm like, he's on the list of like my favorite authors. And then I would say I really, and I don't remember the 2 authors' names, but there's a couple of them actually. There are 3 other books and I don't remember what the authors' names are. Someone below, please let me know. But the author of The Book Thief is one of my favorites. I really liked that book. That book was really something else. And I don't read a lot of like fiction books that are more kind of swaying nonfiction, where they're kind of like taking pieces of history, but that one was really well done. I haven't read more from them. And I would also say actually there's a couple of people, the author of Me Before You. I mean, like these are more like heavy hitter topics, and like talking about like euthanization is a really like a hard topic to talk about, and I hope I don't get monetized for that, but that's what the book is kind of about for Me Before You. But the author who wrote that, and I have the second book and I want to read that as well, but I appreciate authors who take topics that are a little bit out there and kind of make them a little bit more digestible. It doesn't mean that they're right, the ideas, but I really enjoyed that author's writing. And I also enjoyed, I forgot what the author's name is, the person who wrote Feed, and I did a book review on this book. This book is really, really freaking good. I mean, it's a product of its time just because there are certain words that are used because this book came out like in the early 2000s, but it's a really, really good book. And I forget who wrote it, but like it's really well written, and I feel like it could still hold up to today. And then the other author that I do remember the name of, and I would say she writes memoir. I read her memoirs, and I want to read the second book of her memoir, but it's Jeanette Walls. I know not a lot of people like her, and I think I read comments on some of her books, people saying like, oh, this is so dramatized, but like it's a memoir. Like if anybody were to write a memoir of themselves, I'm pretty sure we would all dramatize our lives a little bit better, because life sometimes gets boring, you know, you're dramatizing it as a story. But I loved The Glass Castle, and when they made a movie about it, I was so happy. And then when Woody Allen got to play the dad, I was just like, this is amazing. So yeah, I loved her writing. Her writing really made me kind of like interested more in like nonfiction type of books, even though I don't really like reading nonfiction, but she made me want to branch out a little bit more from fantasy and like go into other genres. But yeah, I would say my top favorite of all time, cannot change my mind, will be Cassandra Clare. And I know that probably sounds cliche, but I will always be a fan of her books. And then for number 2, the second spot would probably be a tie between Marissa Meyer or Lauren Oliver, just because they hold a special place in my heart. And oh my god, so those would be my favorite authors. So it would be Cassandra Clare first, then a tie between Lauren Oliver and Marissa Meyer, then Sarah J. Maas, and then most likely the author of The Book Thief, the author of Feed, the author of Me Before You, and the author of and Jeanette Walls. They would be kind of last, and then above them would be Rick Riordan. So those would be my favorite authors of all time, and Cassandra being the number 1. So yeah, sorry if this video was super short, but yeah, I will be doing more videos in the future. I don't know if I'm going to be posting every Sunday at my normal time. I might try to like post at different times or different days, but just know I will post once a week, hopefully, and I will try to make an announcement on YouTube, because I completely forget that you can make announcements for that. But anyway, so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. Check out those other videos that I mentioned. If you have any comments or any questions, feel free to leave them down below. You can also follow me on Instagram at Savvy Garcia and TikTok at Savvy Garcia as well, or I mostly post more like art stuff. I occasionally post the same stuff on YouTube, but I don't do it very often, especially because YouTube doesn't let me pick the thumbnail for some weird reason for the shorts, and I don't know why. And like some of the stuff is really good, but anyway, so thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see all you guys in the next video.